and I just want you to please make him welcome here. Please welcome Superintendent Michael Thurmond.
Good evening. First, I want to thank Mayor Davis and the members of council for inviting me here. I had the opportunity to speak with Ms. Chase Williams, I guess, when we were visiting up in Dunwoody, and she was kind enough to reach out to the mayor, who I've known since he was a little whippersnapper. His father and I were not only members of the Georgia General Assembly, but we served together on the Judiciary Committee. And he always talked about how proud he was of this young man. And we talked about the possibility of one day him entering elective office in politics. I watch your career and I'm very proud of what you've accomplished, and I know your father is too. Thank you so much. I also once again recognize my school board member, Marsha Olson in the back, who's very dedicated, hardworking, and of course Ms. Nancy Jester, who is a former member of the board, who actually played a role in me having this job. Y'all give her a hand. And Marsha Olson, by the way, just for the record, he was the person who actually recommended me. It was his idea. Now I hope it doesn't come back to haunt him one day, but I'm here because he had the bright idea of bringing me in a non-traditional source to address a very critical issue. First and foremost, I want to say that my number one priority as the interim superintendent is to address issues raised by SACS, to make sure that we respond in every feasible way to the questions, to the concerns that has been raised. Just this week, we had two individuals from SACS who visited the district office. We had a great conversation. I've talked about telephone. I've met first, and then talked by telephone with Dr. Mark Elgard, who heads up the SACS organization. He and I will be getting together soon to have lunch within the next 7 days. And I want to assure each and every person in this room, in the sound of my voice, that as it relates to the probationary status for the DeKalb School District, I assure you that we will earn full accreditation for the DeKalb County School District, and we will not lose that accreditation, not this year or next year. One of the things I've said over and over again as a leader now in this position is that not on my watch. We are focused, we're willing, I am able to make the tough decisions that must be made and are being made to assure that we provide all the children of DeKalb County who are enrolled in our district access to a quality education. Mistakes have been made, and one of the things I've learned very early in life is that you learn from your mistakes, but you don't dwell on them. The focus now is moving forward, to learn from the mistakes that were made, and then to come together as a district, as a county, to do what's right for our children. Second issue is that we are getting our fiscal house in order. This is a situation that manifested itself over a long period of time. It has come to rest right now at the district office, and as the superintendent, it is my responsibility to lead the effort to ensure that we're making the right investments, the right decisions, and being fiscally responsible with the dollars that we have. This is being done. You'll see a different focus in the upcoming budget for FY14. I've spoken with our board members, Mr. Marshall Orson, as well as our chair, Mr. Johnson. And by the way, the 6 new board members, you know, I kind of was partial to some of my former board members, but the governor, Dia, has committed himself to working with us to do everything we can to meet the challenge that we face. I've had several conversations with him personally. I've met with him personally, his staff, and he is committed and his staff is committed. I met with the state school superintendent, John Barnes, and his senior staff. We were very frank about what has not been done and the way things have been done. And I've committed to him and he's committed to me that we are going to work together to do what's right for the district and more importantly, for our children. You know, if you followed it, I've gone from one end of the district to the other. In the morning, I would be meeting with the DeKalb Chamber of Commerce and Leadership DeKalb at a breakfast. And so why am I doing this? Number one, my leadership philosophy is this. First, you must listen, Secondly, you must learn, and then, and only then, are you able to lead. I'm in the listening phase. I'm talking not just to stakeholders, external, parents, students, taxpayers, but we've also held, and I've just completed 5 town hall meetings with employees of the district. And as I told them, listen, the truth will set us free. I'm not sensitive, right? I've been in public office for more than 25 years. Everything that I could have been called, I have been, right? That's not why I'm here. I'm here to listen to the concerns raised by citizens, by parents. That's okay. The only thing I ask is that we be honest. I love honesty. Only through being honest can we truly address the problem that we face. And oftentimes, honesty requires us to listen to people we may or may not agree with, listen to people we may or may not have a conversation with. Then we can come to a conclusion that I think will solve many of the problems that we face. And I'll stop after I say this. One of the things I've learned, and I had a discussion here with Representative Jacobs in particular, and by the way, this young man, I have to admire anyone who served in the Georgia House of Representatives. It is a tough job. I served there for 6 years, and I think y'all ought to give him a hand. He is close. Give him a hand. It's really a tough job, and often an unappreciated job. But let me tell you, the thing about going from Dunwoody to Brookhaven to South DeKalb and East DeKalb and West DeKalb to Cross Keys to various high school to McNair, and today I was at Dunwoody earlier, meeting with some students who are running the mass media program there at Dunwoody High School, and students from all over the district. You know, this county is one of the most diverse counties, not just in Georgia, but in America. And when I speak of diversity, one of the things that often surprises people I talk to, we often look at diversity in the old, what I call 20th century lens. Back in the day when it was just North DeKalb versus South DeKalb and South DeKalb versus North DeKalb. One of my good friends who I talk to often is a woman named Martha Zoller. Y'all may know Martha. She's a conservative talk show host. Our politics don't always sync up. We've been friends for many years. And so she called me up right after I was appointed to the job, Mayor Davis. And she said, Mike, number one, congratulations, I'm so proud, but I wanted you to know that I am a graduate of Columbia High School, right? And she said, I love my high school, I grew up in the neighborhood. And she said, well, you know, some interesting things have happened in DeKalb. She said that when I was a senior at Columbia High School, Columbia High was a 95% white school. And she said that 5 years after I graduated, it had evolved and transformed itself into a 95% majority African-American school. And she talked about the great transformation that occurred in DeKalb County. But then she said, but let me tell you what's more important than that. When I was there in high school, when we were 95% white, guess what? We always believed that the schools on the north side were better funded and received more resources than the schools on the south side. I was stunned. And I guess the moral of this story is that oftentimes some of the things that we see, that we believe divides us, are not what we really think that they are. Some of the issues transcend and evolve way before this particular demographic reality took place. So what we have to do is do what I've always done, is to build the bridges, open up the lines of communication, and find common ground to work for the best interest of all the citizens, and particularly all the students of this district. And I thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank y'all, and I appreciate it. I thought I was going to get away, Mr. Mayor, but not so fast, Rebecca. All right.
And when you ask your question, if you could stand up and state your name and where you live, please.
Hi. My name is Joanne Russell. Thank you for coming up here. I was actively involved in the DeKalb County school system, graduated, 3 kids who graduated, intimately involved both as a parent and a long
Excuse
term.
me, I'm coming over and give you the mic, so
Oh, I don't think so.
everyone can hear you.
Okay, I just didn't want it screeching. I'm concerned because the SACS issues that put the cat under notice, we'll say, all have to do with process. And nothing to do with what I think of as the substance of the school system, which is actually educating the children. And I have this deep and abiding fear that children continue to be lost in the process. And I know that the task facing the current board is Herculean, huge. But in the meantime, teachers are losing hope, kids are losing time. Do you have a game plan that addresses both the SACS issues, which I think are so secondary, because they don't even address the issues of corruption and incompetence that you and I could talk about for hours, but we won't do that here, and are addressing the quality issues for our students?
Thank you. I'm going to step out so that my back is not to the audience. Great question. Let me tell you how I see it. And I think you properly stated the situation. Oftentimes, when problems are not problems, sometimes they are symptoms. Much of what Sachs really pointed out were symptoms that align itself with certain problems. I see the Sachs findings as really an opportunity for us to fundamentally redirect the focus of the district. Not so much with the symptoms, but with the problems themselves. And so we're going to respond to SAC because we have to, and it's important that we protect our accreditation. But we're not stopping at just responding to SAC, because we can respond to SAC and still not address what I believe to be the fundamental issues of the district. Number one is that we have to refocus direction, attention, and resources towards improving instruction in classroom and academic performance. Much of the SACS report did not deal with academic achievement. It dealt primarily, to a great extent, with board dysfunction. That is being and has been addressed. What I'm focused on is long-term, what can we do to rebuild and increase academic achievement in our classroom? One of the first things we have to do is look at who actually is enrolled in the district. I've talked to hundreds of people, soon thousands, and many are surprised, but not here at Path Academy, that nearly 20% of the students enrolled in our school are English learners, i.e. they speak English as a second language. Thousands of them, their parents do not speak English at all. So what I was saying earlier, that old construct of North-South and black folk, white folk is obsolete. It's part of the 20th century model and its way of thinking that does not represent what is really transpiring in the school district today. If you look at the population in our elementary schools and see the huge number of children from 142 different countries enrolled in our schools. And see, oftentimes we see things, but we don't really understand the full implications of it. You can ride, go to the farmer's market there in Clarkson and see foods from all over the world, which I've done, all type of delicacies and fruits and vegetables. And I often wonder, who's purchasing these items, right? And then you go out further on Buford Highway and you see every nationality represented in commercial establishments, and even the farmer's market there on Buford Highway. Look inside our elementary schools and you will understand. We have to develop a model that is more diverse, and this model can't operate from one person seated at the central office on Mountain Industrial Boulevard. We're going to create more flexibility. We're going to decentralize authority and decision making on a more regional level, so that all of our children, regardless as to where they come and where they reside, will get access to a quality education. Those gifted kids who really need the opportunity to grow beyond where they are now will be supported. But at the same time, we got to recognize that unless we lift those from the bottom, ultimately the district will continue to suffer from an overall academic performance. We are a very diverse district. 71% of the children enrolled in the district today qualify for free or reduced lunch. Let me repeat, and you understand what that means.
Wow.
71%. Now, that doesn't mean that kids can't learn because they qualify for free and reduced lunch. And let me tell you why I know that's not true. I qualified for free and reduced lunch from 1st to 12th grade. I'm a free and reduced lunch kid, right? And y'all don't hear the food serving people round of applause because it wasn't for them. But I know that I had parents, I had teachers, I had a community who expected the very best from me. We have to have a system that recognizes it doesn't matter where you live, but ultimately it's where you're going, and ultimately we need a system that supports it. Listen, I got a young man, you probably the first student to ask me this question at one, so I want to go to him. Don't y'all think that's important?
Actually, I was a student 2 years ago, but I still live in Brookhaven, and I go to college now.
Where are you in school?
Williams College, Massachusetts.
All right, good man, huh?
Yeah, we talked about getting the fiscal house in order, and then you talked about decentralizing. I mean, when I went to school, it seemed like the teachers are the boss, the principals are the boss, and everybody seems to have a boss that nobody really knows. And I guess my question is, how many workers in the central office? Because some years back, they talked about cutting 600 jobs in the central office. I mean, what could 600 people possibly be doing? Do you know how many? Like, can you give us a number? If you don't know, that's fine. But
No, I estimate.
Yeah.
In the last fiscal year, the DeKalb School District cut its budget by more than $90 million. Not necessarily because it wanted to, but because it had to. And I hope you're following the news reports, and it surprises people, that Cobb County is now facing what? 80, the report I heard was $80 to $90 million what? Shortfall. It's not just a DeKalb County issue. Fayette County is facing what? $16 million shortfall. The reality is, and that's no excuse, it doesn't matter how much money you have, you're required to manage it properly. Am I right? But you also have to put in perspective that the DeKalb Property Digest, and I was looking at the numbers yesterday, 6 years ago prior to the recession, it was about $25 billion. Today, it's about $18 billion. When your property value and my property value decline, and although I'm very excited to pay less property taxes, you know and I know that schools are primarily funded through what? Property taxes. The other reality is the state of Georgia, through no fault of Representative Jacobs, has significantly reduced its contribution because of the same reason. When these two things occur, there is a confluence of events that forces school districts, no matter where you're located, to reduce taxes. Now, I'm the first one to tell you that's not an excuse for bad fiscal management. Not the state of the economy, not the state of Georgia, but you have to recognize the reality of it. Now, not only did we cut the budget, but there are people, teachers, number one, who not had a raise in 6 years. Do I have any teachers? Yes, in 6 years. And furlough days have gone up. Every furlough day represents a reduction in salary. Now, I don't know who and what they were doing in the central office, but one of my leadership principles is I never ask the people who work with me to do something I won't do. You will see a difference in the FY14 budget. That's the budget that I'll be responsible for. Now, I'm not responsible for the previous budget, but when I raised my hand and said I will, that meant that it's my responsibility to correct any deficits or shortfalls as a result of it. The buck will stop with me. This gentleman did not come back. He had his hand up. Yes, sir.
I'm Ronnie Mayer. I'm the president of the Asher Park Homeowners Association, and I am a product of the school system. I graduated from Cross Keys. And when we went to Cross Keys, oh, I don't need that. We always thought that we were at the bottom of the barrel, and that Dunwoody, Peachtree, and Lakeside got all the money. That's what I thought was. And now that I'm growing up and I'm a little community, I want to see accountability with my school system. We own a few pieces of property here, my wife and I, and we pay a lot of school taxes. And we just, in the last 5 years, me and one of my other next door neighbors had a run-in with the school board over the little trailers. And I want to see accountability. I watch the news every morning. There's a little child called Trip Halstead that the limb hit him in the head at daycare. Well, me and this other gentleman, matter of fact, this sits up there, Mr. Iyer, one of our new city commissioners, ran into the school board over these old trees with limbs falling down every day and said, we want the trailers in the field. The first year they said, no, the field floods all the time and you can't do it. Next year they bring us 8 trailers out in the field. I said, well, can we move these here? No. I said, who's going to be responsible for when one of these limbs comes down out of these big trees and impales the root and kills 2 kids? And no, there's no accountability right now. Everybody passes, but hopefully with you there for a little bit, there'll be some accountability. That just frustrates me when we pay the tax dollars that we do. And I won't say y'all, but I'll say the school board is this whole separate entity. You can't touch it. They build buildings without permits. They do land disturbance without permits, and it's indestructible. And they spend your money however they want. I want to see accountability. That's all I want. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, you do have a new school board now, so you have
Partially new.
partially. Well, the 3 members are just elected. And one of the things I have to encourage you, if you have problems with the school board, who elects school board members?
We do.
So if we're not satisfied with your school board member,
Vote them out.
who is responsible, not that I'm encouraging it, but who is responsible for that?
We are.
Yeah, I was at one meeting, the lady said, you need to change that school board. Well, they hired me, I can't change it. Right, but voters can, if voters choose to.
Only change one.
Well, actually, and that's a good point. The lady said we can only change one. Actually, your vote counts all over the county, because school board members are elected by districts, but they have to serve the entire district. So residents of DeKalb can campaign in one district, but you're not prohibited from doing what? You can campaign, you can volunteer, you can send money, you can actually influence the election of any school board member anywhere in DeKalb County. Now, we don't really look at it that way, but in order for us to really become a high-quality district, all of us, including me, we have to move from my district, my neighborhood, my school. When we, and this is what I'm going to talk about to the Chamber of Commerce in the morning. I've been working on this afternoon, and I call it enlightened self-interest. We're all self-interest, and you should be, with your child and your child's education. And you don't have to apologize to anybody for that. Every parent, every grandparent ought to be what? Self-interested. That should be your primary record. But at the end of the day, in order for us as a county and a state and a nation to really be successful, we're going to have to become interested in the education of other people's children. That don't live in my neighborhood, that don't attend my school, and don't live in my district. And I always do this. How many of you were born, raised, and graduated from a high school in DeKalb County, other than this gentleman? It's always less than 10%. It's always less than 10%. That means that your education that you're using while you live here in DeKalb was paid for and supported by taxpayers in some other district, some other county, some other state. It just can't be about where I stand today. I saw someone, and then I'll come back. Yes, ma'am.
My biggest discouragement is sitting around hearing the teachers talk about working, embarrassed work for the county, and not really, and then, you know, everybody wanting to get out to retirement is, and there's a perception that retirement is worse in DeKalb County. So I would just like to know the facts of teacher pay, both on the regular pay scale and retirement, because there's a perception that our retirement that we asked, they don't get Social Security, and the longer they stay, the worse their outcome. So I wanted just to get facts. And then secondly, what are you doing to try to retain the best? Because it's all the best teachers that have the chance to move. I know that the good news is nobody's hiring much, but the best teachers will. So what are you doing to retain talent, both at the principal and the teacher level? Because I asked them, are you hearing anything, or is there anything being done? And they said, I'm not hearing it. No, I don't feel like I'm being talked to.
Well, I haven't talked to all 5,000 of them, but we've had 5 hearings that have been full of teachers.
Yeah.
All right, that's the fact. And I've traveled around the district, and of course, I hadn't gotten all of them, they hadn't all talked to me. One of the things I'm doing, I'm standing here talking to you all, because unless we restore public trust, it's going to be very, very difficult to get the resources needed to provide them with the salaries and the retirement they deserve. Second thing, we have to get the fiscal house in order. One of the great aha moments for me is we didn't do a very good job explaining to teachers and employees as to why the budget cuts were put in place. There is a disconnect between knowing why my salary or why I've not received a salary or a step up or a salary increase and the horrible fiscal crisis that we're in. Look, I guess it was 4 years ago when I was labor commissioner. I traveled all around Georgia. Some 12,000 teachers were laid off. And my job was to travel around the state of Georgia, right, to provide them with the information needed so they could apply for unemployment insurance. What we're seeing are the ones who survived that crisis. And it's not just a crisis in DeKalb County. When I was in the legislature with Mayor Davis's dad, and this is the truth, when it came to the public education, and I see all the lines here, remember this, when it came to public education in the good old days, we would put public education first and put a 2 or 3% cost of living increase in it, and that ended the debate and discussion on public education. That is not the way it gets done. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but public education now faces the same cuts, potentially, as any other state service, and it's having an impact. Now that, in the end, may create a better public education system, but that is the reality that we're facing. And the last thing I'm doing and trying to build morale with teachers is telling them the truth. This is going to be a hard road back. I don't have a magic wand. The landscape is different. And see, we often think about public school and school back when I was in school. Well, it's not that way anymore. It is a totally different environment from a funding perspective as well as a political perspective. And so we are going to have to remodel how we teach our kids in order to be effective in this political economic environment. It's just different there. There's not the same amount of resources available today as there has been historically. And you can say it's good or bad and different. I don't want to get into that discussion. But the reality is resources are not as plentiful as they once were. So schools, superintendents, administrators, teachers are going to have to do their job differently if they're going to survive.
But again, to my fact, are our teachers relatively underpaid, both on retirement compared to APS and nearby school systems?
Well, as a result of
Is
the
there a place
recession,
where I can go find the facts for myself? Because I don't know if there's a matched perception from reality. And I even asked some of these teachers, do you know if your system's better? And they don't know.
well, I can tell you,
They just
have.
know that they want to look elsewhere.
Our teachers have not received a raise in 5 years. And right now we're laboring under, I think, 6 furlough days. Their pay is not keeping up with inflation, and it's having a very negative impact, not just on their morale, but on their ability to take care of themselves and their children. That's a fact in DeKalb. I can't speak for other counties, but it's true here.
Okay. Well, I think you should know the competitiveness of your school system's pay for your top talent. So I would encourage you to find that out.
And being able to do something about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Right now, I'm trying to eliminate a deficit. Right now, I'm eliminating a $16 million deficit. It's against the law for a school district to operate in deficit. So my priority now, unfortunately, is not salary increases, but balancing the budget. I don't know how many, we will balance the budget this year.
He asked an accurate question. There's a sense in the county that it is a top-heavy administration.
In the
And
country.
you're talking about the dollars, that's where you look first to get the dollars. And whether it's true or not, I don't know, I've never looked at the budget, but everyone I know has that impression.
I understand. I have 5 direct reports in my top-heavy administration. I got 5.
Who controls the bureaucracy in the central office?
I do.
Okay. But that is a good point the gentleman made, because I'd like to ask this question. There was and I mentioned this at the Cross Keys forum that we had. There was a story done by the AJC a couple years ago where they went through the entire metro school system and showed how much each school system spent per child and what the performance levels were. And they also, the most important statistic for me was the ratio of administrator to teacher. And the systems with the most administrators per teacher were DeKalb County and the city of Atlanta. It was 12 administrators for 1 teacher. The most successful system in the metro area, Gwinnett County, which is also the most diverse and has a pretty big free lunch program as well, was 7 to 1. So you had 5 more administrators per teacher in DeKalb County than you have in Gwinnett County. So when the gentleman asked the question, the young man asked the question about what do those folks do in the central office, that's what I hear from my wife who's a teacher as well, is that we have, when you start to talk about cutting, teacher jobs, because they lost teachers at Kitcher's Magnet School where she teaches, I think what people want to hear, if it's possible, is that we go into that central office first, because teachers are more important than bureaucrats. I think we could all agree on that. And if we could focus more on if we could really go in there and look hard at eliminating some of those positions. I know that's a hard thing to do, but you don't have any history with anybody, you can do whatever you want. I'm sure you'll make some good decisions.
Well, we're looking at every level. See, it is easy, and I've been inside of crisis organizations before. And one of the things I do not do is that I'm not rash.
Right.
I don't base my decision based on either what I heard or even what I always feel. I base it on rational evaluation and determination as to what's in the best district of the organization and the individuals I'm trying to serve. That in fact may be true. I am not yet determined that that is true. And what I'm going to do is be a deliberative person, not necessarily, and the good thing about this job is I didn't wake up that morning wondering if they were going to call me to be the superintendent. It's very liberating, It's very liberating because now I can do what ultimately, based on information, knowledge, and expertise, what is in the best interest of the children of DeKalb County. Sir, you may be right. All I'm saying to you today, that in and of itself, I have not discovered to be true. I'm not saying it's not true. I just can't confirm that it is true right now. I am building a 2014 budget that will focus resources, wherever they may be, on supporting classroom instruction and teachers. Now, I am doing that, and the proof will be in the pudding. Not what I say. Joe Frank Harris told me something a long time ago when I was a freshman legislator. He said, Mike, don't listen to politicians. And nothing they say. Follow the money. Right? Follow the money. In the 2014 budget, which is the first one I had an opportunity to have influence on. Gentleman in the back, and he had his hand up, sir, and then I'll come to you. Yes, sir.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Aubrey Webb. I'm over at Cross Keys. My name is Aubrey Webb. I'm on the ring so I can speak. Okay, my name is Aubrey Webb. I'm from Cross Keys High School. And to answer your question about teachers' pay, with the internet, you can go on any county, you can look up the pay. Okay, now one thing about teachers are paid well when you look at them compared to other people. Because teachers get They get their salary and it's spread out over 12 months. Now you think about it. If you are smart and you really care about doing some things, you can make some extra money during those months when you are off and not working. Okay? And what you have to do is, like in my case, I'm coming back to teaching. I first taught after I graduated from Morehouse and Georgia Tech in 1975, just to give you a comparison. I started in September 1975 in the Atlanta public school system making $750 a month. Okay? And I said, hey, I'm not going to deal with this. I had already been a Vietnam vet, so I went back in the military, and I also worked as an engineer with AT&T. Okay, so ultimately I retired from that. I retired from the military after 40 years, and then I went back and earned my PhD at age 62. And I went back into the system, so now I'm losing money to help out and be a teacher to help educate. Now I challenge any of you to do that. Okay, we want to talk about what's going on, we talk about the money. Now we can look at what has happened to us as a country. And overall, what happened to us was the banking industry. We inflated the cost of our houses. My mother built their house in the 1950s and 60s. They paid $10,000 for their house. And look at how we've inflated the houses over the past years from that time up to now. And look at what the actual value of the houses are. They're really what they should actually be. Okay, I built my own house, and the bottom line is we overinflated, so we're paying the price. Everything is going to be all right. I tell you this, the bottom line is you live within your budget and you'll be all right. If it's two people making a salary, they all be able to take care of themselves. But we overspend here in America. People stop and they forgot how to live within a budget. That's our problem. We'll be okay.
This gentleman, then I come to this gentleman here.
Yeah, so my question is, the last board, seems like I read their complaints were that the chief executive, the superintendent, wasn't giving them, they had claimed, it wasn't giving them all the information they needed to make decisions that they were charged to make. And that in most companies, that in fact, it's the chief administrator or the employee that reports to the board that drives a lot of what actually happens day to day, because you're doing it. You're hiring people, you're firing people. People are scared of you. They're not so scared of the board. They don't even know who they are, but they're scared of you. So it seems like their complaint, the last board was, the superintendent and their entourage wasn't providing them with any of the information they really needed, or that they would get partial information, is what I read, and then come to find out a month later that, the decisions that they made,
They were lying.
It was crazy. So I don't know who's right or wrong, but I'd like to know what your ideas about being a chief executive with your new 600-person staff that reports to you. What are you going to do with them, and how are you going to? What's going to? Of course, none of this is going to change what happens every day in the classroom. That's true, and that we can talk about that later. But it seems to me like you guys are all focused on this 600-person staff, but I'd like to know what you're going to do differently from the last superintendent as far as dealing with the board, giving them the information they need to do, because there's lots of money. I don't think there's any shortage of money in this system. Because I graduated in public schools in 1987, and I'd love to see the budget per kid when I graduated in 1987, and how much money we spend per kid now in 2012. I bet it's way much higher. So I think the real problem here is efficiency. It's not about having more money. And another thing, part of my job is I look at all industries around this country, and I'm not aware of anybody in any industry that's received a raise in the last 5 years, including most people in every industry in this room. So I think that's a weird expectation to have, that you should have a raise in the last 5 years. It's strange to me. It'd be nice, but you'd be one of the few that had a raise. So I think we should be focused on efficiency of the money we have, but I'd really like to hear you speak to how you're going to handle your report to your board differently from the last guy or lady that has your job.
I think the fact that we're having this conversation indicates how I will operate with my board. Transparency, honesty, and integrity. That is the only way to communicate with anyone, especially your board. Sharing the information was necessary. Only by having a strong, involved board can we ultimately succeed in improving academic achievement in the classroom. It's in my best interest to have a strong, involved, informed board. You saw it at the first board meeting. You'll continue to see it. It's happening every day. With the chair, with Melvin Johnson, as well as with the board members. I don't have anything to hide. I understand what you read. And if any of that is true, then it would have been almost impossible for that board or any board to be successful. And the reason I said it that way is that there are legal prescriptions in her severance package that will not allow me to speak directly. But if in fact what you say is true, then obviously you can understand why that may have been some challenge.
Superintendent, we just take, we have a couple more, we have one more question and then we can wrap it up.
This gentleman, then I get these two, and then that'll be it.
My name is Sam White. I live behind St. Joseph's Hospital, right on the border of Sandy Springs and Decatur County. I was watching the news the other night. To my surprise, they were interviewing the head of SACS. And I've always been worried about the children getting their education, and I commend you for making that your top priority. But it sounded like this thing's been going on for 10 years. And he seemed very, very frustrated that he couldn't get any action in 10 years. That's a decade. Do you have 2 or 3 things on your agenda as to how to appease that group where our schools won't be flushed down the toilet? Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Number one, I have a working relationship with Dr. Elgar. The first call I made during the week was to him. He was out on the West Coast. Monday morning, I was at his office, talking to him about his expectations so that we have open lines of communication. 2 of his monitors were at my office and had a long conversation with him on Tuesday of this week. Listen, we can work this out. What SACS is asking, quite frankly, is not a hill too far or a mountain too high. It's just not. What we have to do is recognize that we're all in it together. It's not Michael Thurmond versus Elgar or the CAB versus SACS. It's really about the children. And I believe that SACS and Dr. Elgar wants to do what's best. He doesn't have any interest in taking the accreditation from this district. That doesn't promote if we will do what we're supposed to do. And it's my job to ensure that that happens, and I promise you it will. We're going to do our part. Just absolutely. Well, it was this gentleman, I know, then I'll come back to you with the last question, since I've already asked. Yes, sir.
As one person in a county of about 750,000 people with 100,000 students, and it feels hard for me to feel like I can have any impact in the school board, and even if you've got 24 very dedicated PTA people in any school trying to affect change in that school, do you think the school system is too big?
No. This is the 3rd agency I've run. It's not too big. Not one person with courage can make a majority, by the way. I want to say it to you. One person with courage can make a majority. And the question really comes to me as one individual, just like you're one individual. And I know in the back of your mind, in the back of what can this one man do? One person with enough courage to stand up and, number one, believe in the asset that we have to our children. I don't have any doubt about the brilliance and the talent and the integrity and the hopes and the dreams surrounding our children. If we all believe that, there's nothing we can't accomplish. There are larger school districts in America that do quite well. We're not the largest in America. We're not even the largest in Georgia. The mayor just pointed out, Gwinnett is larger than us. So the fact that we're large does not prohibit us from being what? Good.
Mission.
We can be good. Now, small is easier, but I think large can give us a great opportunity. What we have to do, and I'll say this and as I close, is really about us recognizing the commonality of our needs. What the dysfunction in the board, and let me just talk about it, represents the dysfunction in our county. It doesn't just exist at the board. It exists in our county because we have to come together. We have to see that it's in all of our best interest, not only to educate our own children, but to educate other people's children. Look, if you in economic development, if you got any interest in creating economic growth and prosperity, the one thing you're going to need is a skilled, trained, educated workforce. If you intend to generate profits, I don't care where you are and what you're doing, if you want to have a profitable business 5 and 10 and 20 years from now, you've got to be interested in the education and training of the children today. Not only is that your future workforce, those are your consumers. America understands developing markets. We do it all over the world, don't we? This is a developing market that all of us can take advantage of if we will invest. Yes, ma'am.
You spoke earlier about the SACS issues being symptoms of a larger problem. And one of the threads that ran through several people's questions and comments had to do with the top-heavy administration and the central office. And then you said you haven't seen any evidence or you're waiting to...
I didn't say I haven't seen it. I'm waiting the evidence.
Okay, because my question was going to be, has not one of those 600 reports talked to you about the audit that the Lloyd Touche did at the behest of the school board several years ago, for which several $100,000 were paid? Early reports came out, I don't remember the exact numbers anymore, but some astronomical figure of, you know, we could get rid of 10 to 1 per, and it would be still a functioning central office. And when push came to shove and we demanded to see the results, suddenly they disappeared, never to be found again. Now, I would be highly discouraged if not one of those people in the central office has approached you with information about that report that we citizens paid for and has disappeared. But
What
it's
year
critical.
was the report done? What year was the report done?
You know, I'm going to have to go back to my files because to your point about Dr. Elger seeming very anxious, there's been a group of us, and I know we weren't alone in the Chamblee High School cluster, who supplied Dr. Elger with reams and reams and reams and reams, and I'm not exaggerating, of material over the last easily 8 years, if not more. And there's political reasons why he suddenly has expressed dismay. We don't need to go into that here. I'm just glad you're here. I will get your card and give you some contact information because this is information that we taxpayers have paid for. And I don't see any point in you having to reinvent the wheel and spend more money to get information that people who make a career of doing these kinds of audits and analyses for, you know, the Fortune 500 companies. So my question was if you had seen or heard about it.
Let me speak to me. I've not hired a single person. You know what I do though? I would afford them the same opportunity I would afford you if you worked for me. I would give you the opportunity to be evaluated by me before I fire you. I wouldn't fire you based on what somebody else said about you. I just wouldn't do it. And I wouldn't expect you to fire me based on comments that someone else made that I can't corroborate.
This doesn't have to do with job.
Superintendent Thurmond, Miss Jernigan there, she's a neighbor of mine, so she's right behind you. You got her hand there.
This lady right here has waited the whole meeting to speak.
Microphone.
I think that goes to part of the problem, is it's not even in this situation, I don't think people are necessarily talking about performance. There can be a lot of very good people, but when you have too many people, for instance, my friend tried to do something with the playground at our school a couple of years ago. 3 people, nobody would take responsibility. They were all in charge of playgrounds, but nobody was in charge of playgrounds. They may all be very good at their jobs. It doesn't require necessarily an evaluation of their performance. But when there are 3 people in charge of playgrounds, that's too many. And so I think that goes to the efficiency. It's not that it's a personal attack, or it's not that. It's just that many people doing the same job. It's time to cut back.
I don't respond to people based on indirect hearsay evidence. I didn't respond to people who told me about the people in Brookhaven. All right, I just didn't. I didn't, and I won't, because I want to get to know you myself, based on my experience, based on my relationship with you. I encourage you not to judge me based on incidents that may have happened 5 or 10 years ago that obviously I had no knowledge of. What I'm here to tell you is that we're moving in a new direction. I need your help. We can learn from the past, but you don't dwell on the past. That's all I can tell you. I can't dwell in the past. I can learn from it. I'll apologize to you if you felt like you were wrong or misled or not served, but that's all I can do. I am here working towards the future of DeKalb County, working with the future of DeKalb County, and that's our children. That's my focus. I am looking to the future. I will not allow myself to be mired in the past. My parents taught me that you don't judge people by history, because if you lock yourself into historical occurrences, the way people may have treated you in history, then you won't be able to have friendships and relationships you need to be successful in the present and in the future.
Just one thing, as you're moving into the future, can you keep in mind not to add more to the teacher's plate? I'm not a teacher, but my oldest is in 7th grade, all the way up through, and every year I feel like I walk through the halls and it's just the shoulders.
No more fourth.
Just, yeah, I mean, just whatever, just please keep in mind. I mean, I know central office does a wonderful job, all great people, but the teachers are where my kids are learning, and they went from classrooms of 12 students to now they're close to 30, and the teachers just cannot do anything else.
Well, if you
Keep that in
increase
mind.
student size, you know why? Because the budget cut. That's how you save money.
I know,
in
the
the
budget's
district.
going to be cut someplace else, because there should not be any more students than those teachers.
Well,
I'm just
and
saying,
I'll tell you,
keep that in mind.
no, it's great because what I told teachers last night, one of the things that's new when you all have hired new superintendent, they always come in with a new plan, a new program, a new idea. You've not heard that from me. Because now we are inventory programs and curriculums already in place, and we'll determine which ones we don't need before we even think about what we do need, other than what we already have. Already a part of the agenda. I appreciate the question.
Thank you. Thank you. We've got more people lined up for speaking. Superintendent Thurmond, we would appreciate you coming out here and